That was my face watching the Barcelona-Manchester United game tonight. It was a game that ended 2-2 at the Nou Camp, and it was just a nuts game from start to finish. I don't know how I'm going to analyse it, but let's jump in and see what we can do. So on the board in front of me, I have the two teams as they're lined up, and I could spend the whole of this video actually talking about the way that these two teams lined up because they were very out of the ordinary. So let's start off with Barcelona because they were probably the more standard of the two. Now this season Barcelona have lined up in a 4-3-3 formation, as people have called it, but actually in a lot of phases of play they don't look very close to that 4-3-3 shape at all. What happens is they make certain shifts in possession, and that is because they want to get all of their midfielders into the best positions. They have a number of really good midfielders and they can't get them all in otherwise. So the most interesting thing to note here is Xavi as a left-sided forward. Xavi is probably better thought of as a central midfielder. The reason he's starting out here is because they want to get him into the midfield in some way, and the way that they do that is by dropping one of their interiors alongside the pivot player here. Now usually that is Sergio Busquets, but in this game he was not available, so De Jong, who plays as the interior on this side usually, moved across to the pivot spot. Franck Kessié moved in alongside him. This gives space now for Xavi to make this movement inside here. And then we have Pedri in the other interior space over here. So you have what we call a box midfield here. So quite easy to see why. 4 midfielders in that space. Now, obviously that's a really nice way of getting all of your midfielders into the middle of the park. What it does though is it opens up space here for Jordi Alba to move forward. Now the more eagle-eyed among you will notice that this sort of shape is what we're seeing a lot from teams at the highest level of football right now. And actually there's times when we might see Manchester United play in this shape as well, because what you'll often see is one of the fullbacks inverting here, the back four now becoming a back three, shifting across like this. Now again we've got a box shape here, box midfield, and a 3 here. So you've got 3, box, 3. Same as this shape here, but they've arrived at it in a very different way to the way that Barcelona have done that. Now, some of us thought that this meant that we might see the game just become a 1v1 matchup across the field. You can push your front 3 up onto the opposition back 4. Then you've got your box midfield just matching up against the box midfield, the opposition, and then your back 3 pushing up against the opposition front 3. You'll play for player across the pitch, and we've seen games like this happen recently, notably Arsenal against Manchester City in the FA Cup was very much matched up in this way, and there was many of us who thought that this was how the game was going to pan out. But actually Manchester United had different ideas in mind, because when the team sheet came out we thought that Manchester United would do their usual 4-2-3-1 sort of shape. We'd have Weghorst as a 9, Fernandes behind him as a 10, 2 wide players in Sancho and Rashford. We've got a double pivot in Casemiro and Fred, maybe Fred pushing up a little bit more, and then your back line here. That was not what happened. What happened was Wout Weghorst dropped in, Rashford went to the centre forward spot, and Fernandes came out wide here. And actually Weghorst and Fred played as 8s. Now we could talk about that in a little while, but moving Rashford up front makes a certain degree of sense if you're playing against a team like Barcelona, who are going to try and control possession, they're going to try and force Manchester United into the final third, and they are going to leave space at the back that can be attacked. And Marcus Rashford is a player who can do that, and we saw him doing it many times in this game. What is surprising about this though is that we now have Fred and Wout Weghorst as 8s. Now, Fred as an 8 is understandable, especially in a game where you might want to press high. Wout Weghorst as an 8 is a little bit more confusing. But what we need to understand is that in this game, Manchester United were really not going to try and build up from deep like they tried to do against Leeds at the weekend, and it went horribly wrong. Actually, what they're going to try and do is just get the ball forward as quickly as possible, make the most of transitional moments. So they're going to push their players forward into the opposition half, and then in the build-up phase, they literally just had the 2 centre-backs dropping deep, the wide players here, Casemiro is the pivot. Now, Barcelona are going to adopt a very aggressive press. We know that, they like to do that anyway. And what they did is that they went player for player in this phase. Pedri on Casemiro, Rafinha on Malacia. Now this is just man for man here, and then again across the rest of the field, you can go man for man if you want. You're covering everyone in this way. So we did end up going man for man, just not in the shapes that we expected them to do. Now, Manchester United weren't just going to play the ball long all the time. They did have some ideas in deep build-up, and one of those ideas was in this area here. So what we saw was Sancho dropping into this midfield area here, gives you a little bit of an overload in this situation against the 2v2 here. Now, this causes a problem. Who goes after Sancho? Does Araujo follow him, or does Rafinha follow him? Now, if Rafinha goes, then Malacia can push up here, but actually what was happening is that Araujo was tracking Sancho. Malacia then can run into this sort of area, and what you do is you generate a little bit of space over here. Again, with Rashford on this side, you know that he's going to be able to generate dangerous moments here. But the option is there for either the keeper to go long into that space directly, or you can try and do a quick build up and have these transitional moments, try and hit them on the break really quickly. Didn't really work out very well because Manchester United were being pressured man for man. So Manchester United's initial plans just didn't really work out there. Now that's not necessarily a problem for Manchester United because, as we've said, they're just wanting to play transitional football. They're wanting to get the ball forward quickly, and then if the ball is turned over, then they can counter-press it quickly. They've got these two players forward in the eventuality that the ball is turned over, and actually we saw a couple of big chances created in the first half by Manchester United doing exactly that. So there was one situation where ter Stegen threw the ball out to Rafinha in this sort of area. Luke Shaw stepped up on him, won the ball back, and because Barcelona were in their build-up phase, there was lots of space to attack. And what we saw actually in this instance was that Fernandes got the ball was played to him, and Weghorst made this run, ball was played over the top, and then there was a dangerous chance on goal, which probably should have gone in. So that was one of them. The other one was that we actually had these two players here in Araujo and Koundé playing the other way around to the way that they usually play. So usually Araujo is the centre-back and Koundé is the full-back. They were in the other rotation for some reason. I think because Xavi wanted to get these two wide players in the back three when it forms a situational back three with Alba forward, just being good ball carriers. For whatever reason, it didn't seem to work out, and the understanding between these two flipped the other way around was really bad. There was a situation where the ball was won because these two lost it, and again, a quick play into Rashford. Rashford gets the ball across, and ter Stegen has to pull off a really good save to stop that. So the game really suiting Manchester United, even if their build-up plans weren't necessarily working out well. The problem for Barcelona was that they were actually trying to build up, move the ball to the opposition's final third and control the game to a certain degree, and Manchester United were really good at stopping Barcelona from doing that. Now, we've already talked about the way that actually in build-up, Barcelona like to end up almost forming this back three, with Alba pushing forward and Xavi coming inside. Now, when this happens, actually Manchester United were also going fairly player for player. Against a back four, Manchester United have a front three, and if the ball's on this side, they shift across to mark player for player like this. And if the ball goes to the other side, then they all move back across and cover like this. Now, if you do push this player forward, then you are in a situation where it's actually much easier because you can just go player for player on the remaining three players. And what Manchester United did actually was they tracked the Barcelona players all the way around the pitch. And so we ended up with this situation. Now, we've talked about Xavi moving inside. Actually, what happened here was that actually Varane, the centre-back, pushed up to make sure that Xavi wasn't free in these moments. Casemiro went on Pedri. You've got the 2 8s on the Barcelona double pivot here. And again, you're matched up player for player. Now, obviously, when you're playing against teams player for player, there is an advantage that you have because your markers are always reacting to other players. So, for example, if Kessie drops out here, Weghorst is going to have to follow him, but if he has smart movement here, he can get the ball in space in those sorts of situations. And the other thing to say is that Manchester United are really loath to push their fullbacks forward to track opposition fullbacks in certain situations. So in this instance, if Alba does drop back, Wan-Bissaka is unlikely to track him all the way here, so there's the possibility to play that wedge pass from the keeper straight to the fullback and build up from there. But Barcelona really didn't make the most of those sorts of situations. There were some areas where Barcelona were able to pull space in the middle and play the ball into space on this side. Now, because Wan-Bissaka is not wanting to get pulled too far forward, because Varane is tracking Xavi at times, Wan-Bissaka is dropping in here, and that actually gave Alba in the first half quite a few options in terms of getting into these kind of areas early on. They didn't make the most of that through the rest of the game, and actually when Alba got into these sorts of spaces, Manchester United were really good in their transitional moments, making sure that no problems could be caused there. So we had the same situation actually, players marked man for man across the pitch, and it really stopped Barcelona from being able to do their build-up. So we had a scenario where neither team was able to do what they wanted to do in possession, and as a result, the game became transitional. The ball went backwards and forwards quite a lot, and that is a win for Manchester United because Manchester United love it when games become transitional. They have a lot of players who are really good in those transitional moments, and that's how the first Manchester United goal was scored. The ball was kicked long, one of the Manchester United players won it back, it ended up at the feet of Fred, and he was able to play Rashford in, got the ball in a wide angle and played it past ter Stegen. Maybe ter Stegen could have done better on the save, but that was exactly what Manchester United want. Really quick, turn over the ball, play the ball back down the field with a couple of passes, and then score the goal there. But the rest of the goals weren't actually from those tactical moments. moments. And again, I think that suits Manchester United. If Barcelona are able to do the things they want to do tactically, then they are going to generate goal-scoring chances. In the event, they scored the first goal from a corner, and the second goal was a little bit lucky when Rafinha got the ball from quite a way out, crossed the ball in, and because Lewandowski went towards the ball, he was able to fake the ball almost, and it ended up in the back of the net. So overall, I'd say that this is a win for Manchester United. They don't want Barcelona to be able to control the game, because if they do, then it's advantage Barcelona. But because Manchester United were able to make the game really transitional, they were in the driving seat. They were unlucky to actually come through with only a draw here, but they're going to go back to Old Trafford with the confidence that if they play that well again in the second leg, then they will be through to the last 16 of the Europa League.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.